Hey everybody, welcome to The Daily Friend, a 3 times a week segment that we produce here at the Institute of Race Relations in support, of course, by the Big Liberty Show. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. In studio, as usual, I have Marius with us. Marius, good morning.
Morning, Sinclair.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm very well.
And Sarah, good
Hi,
day.
Sinclair. Good day.
Guys, interesting day, interesting news cycle. Let's cover the more topical one right now. Elections. Gareth van Onsling is putting out his latest daily tracking poll. Marius, what does it tell us?
It hasn't changed that much from our last poll. We got the ANC at about 54, DA depending on turnout 24, 25, somewhere around there, and EFF 12 to 14. Probably the 3 most interesting things is that the DA, they've really got that squeeze going in the Western Cape, so they up to close to 60% where they were under 50%.
Which is a huge reprieve for them. I mean,
exactly.
Their numbers were looking quite scary just a few weeks ago, especially with the ACDP showing a surge. What else do we see?
So in Gauteng is probably going to be a hung parliament after the election. So ANC is about 40, 44, DA at 32, 33, which actually not such a big increase for them from 2014 when they got 30%. And the EFF is actually fairly flat. They're around about 12, 13%, and they got 10% in 2014. So there's definitely going to be a coalition government in Gauteng, but who knows what form it's going to take. And finally, the ANC is looking at possibly under 50% in KwaZulu-Natal, which is huge. So that shows you what's happened with the Zuma effect. I mean, apart from Western Cape, the ANC was always softest in KwaZulu-Natal until Zuma came along and actually became one of their best provinces. And now might be heading back to that. And one of the big beneficiaries there, it hasn't been the IFP, it's been the DA, who's probably going to be at above 20%, which will be their best ever result.
Which would be amazing for them.
And the EFF is looking at 10% or even more when they had 1 or 2% in the last election. So EFF has really put a lot of effort into KwaZulu-Natal, and it looks like it's paying off now.
Guys, lots of movement here. Again, this is not a prediction of where the election will be. It is just a snapshot of what voter sentiments were at the time of polling. Nick, coalitions in Gauteng, let me probe you on this one in terms of your opinion. With the prospect of it looking like maybe a hung parliament, that is, what sort of coalitions would we be looking at for Gauteng?
So we'd have a number of options. The one that's probably that would have the largest majority would be the EFF and the ANC together. In a lot of ways, this makes sense. If you poll EFF supporters and you ask them who they want to be in coalition with, they'll probably say the ANC. They would have they're aligned on a lot of policy issues. The alternative is perhaps a DA-ANC coalition, but we've never seen that before, really. There's been I think the only instance of that was in the Western Cape or the Northern Cape, where there was a small municipality.
It was Kanaland.
Which was also very divided. But outside of that, we've never seen that, so we don't really know what that would look like. The alternative to that is an EFF-DA coalition. Well, the EFF refuses to call these agreements coalitions.
Well, in this particular instance, Malema's been intimating that they actually would be entering into coalitions this time, actually likely requesting party positions. And it doesn't surprise me that the EFF are now looking for that sort of power.
So considering the noises that the EFF have been making recently, I think an EFF-ANC coalition is slightly more likely. The EFF is saying, we don't have anything against the ANC, and the ANC tells Malema to return. And they've talked about Malema's talked about having an EFF mayor in Tshwane. So what might happen is, in exchange for the EFF supporting the ANC in Gauteng, they'll then want a mayor in Tshwane, and the metros may change hands as well. So the DA governments in Tshwane and Johannesburg might also fall.
Oh, there's your politics. Marius, very lastly, this is contained in the Criterion report. And you guys can find that on the IRR website at irr.org.za. Let's move on. Guys, Israel has experienced a siege of rockets, 600 plus the last time I checked it. Sarah, what is going on there?
Okay. It seems to be that Hamas has a plan. It has a number of elements to it. On the one hand, Israel, I think, assassinated 2 officials on the Gaza border, and Hamas is saying this is a breach of the ceasefire. And also, you've got Eurovision for the first time ever is taking place in Israel shortly. And it wants, I think partly it's a disruptor, it wants to put people off. So there's been this plethora of rockets, and I mean, I think Israel's holding back very, very tightly because it runs the risk of being accused of just being the aggressor.
Yeah.
And although I think that it might be possible that Hamas is overplaying its hand as far as international opinion.
Look, let's not forget that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's been designated a terrorist organization. Palestine as a region doesn't really have a government. I mean, you have Mahmoud Abbas, their prime minister, who's serving a 14-year, 4-year term. So, these are issues that one has to sort of look at in perspective when you're discussing that particular part of the world. But one thing from my side, in terms of my opinion, is you cannot have 600 plus rockets fired into civilian areas and not have a government respond. The role of the state, the first role of the state, is to protect its citizens from foreign aggression. So I think the Israeli government needs to respond. Yes, the response has to be measured, but at the same time, it needs to go after the sort of terrorist organizations that are in that region. But guys, before we move on, or rather as we move on, this organization, the Institute of Race Relations, it's turning 90. There was a lovely piece by John Kent Berman a couple of weeks back. But as we turn 90, it's consistency, isn't it? If you were to say the one word that defines the Institute of Race Relations, consistency in fighting for a market economy, a prosperous society, and one which leans on the side of freedom for all. Guys, Marius, let me begin with you. What is the significance of that 90th birthday on the 9th of March? Excuse me, 9th of May.
I think it's just shows the Institute's staying ability. I mean, it's actually remarkable for any organization or an NGO in South Africa to exist for 90 years. The Institute's gone through some tough patches in the 80s and the 90s, and much bigger organizations such as IDASA have fallen by the wayside. And the fact is, I think the reason we've survived is because we've been consistent on our principles. We've stood for things like individual rights, the free market economy. I mean, that's what it comes down to. What made apartheid so grotesque was that it took individual rights away.
That's right.
And made them part of a group. I think that's what was one of the most disgusting things about that system. And we fought against that, and we still fight for individual rights now. And I think, as I say, it's the consistency of the organization is what's been part of the staying power.
Guys, consistency in fighting against any form or any iteration of government which oppresses the rights of citizens, whether it was a colonial government, apartheid, or even today's government. Just in short snippets, you're now being with the IRR. What does it mean for you, Nick?
The IRR, I think, is one of the most important organizations in South Africa because it holds that liberal line. And it's been a long sort of mantra that came out during the apartheid years, but I think still remains true today, which is that South Africa can only be governed efficiently with liberal ideas.
Absolutely.
And nothing else will work for it.
Sarah, just in closing?
I suppose just to say that it's an enormous feat to have lasted this long. Pre-apartheid, during apartheid, post-apartheid, and as my colleagues have said, it's the adherence to liberal ideals. Anything from there can be dealt with.
Absolutely, guys, and that's the thing, isn't it? If we are to see another 90 years, it now comes down to the support from you guys. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, especially to those who have joined our crowdfunding campaign, the Friends of the IRR, guys who donate between 70 and 90 Rand a month so that this Institute of Race Relations can continue the good fight of fighting for classically liberal ideas, fighting for liberty in a society which has seen way too much tyranny and a removal of rights from some people over others. It's people like you who keep us in the fight. So remember, if you are interested in supporting our work, in supporting any of the writers and analysts who produce quality content daily in the Daily Friend, you can do that by finding us online at www.irr.org.za/join. And you can sign up on a monthly debit order between 70 and 90 Rand a month, which goes a long way in supporting our work. Or alternatively, SMS your name to 32823. Terms and conditions to apply. An SMS will cost you 1 Rand, and you can do the same thing over there. And guys, do not forget to read our daily material that is put out. Solid quality analysis on the Daily Friend. You can find all our material at www.dailyfriend.co.za. Guys, you've been watching the Daily Friend. We'll see you on the next one.